Do we have a motion?
Second.
And we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Members of the board, members of the community, it's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight the first presentation. We have Dr. George Fiore, who is the Executive Director of Chester County Intermediate Unit, and with him is the Director of Administrative Services, Mr. Joe Labitsky. They are going to present tonight the Chester County Intermediate Unit budget. Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Dunlap, Board Director. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. We're back to normal and presenting in person, which we did a few years ago, so thank you. Today, Mr. Labitsky and I are going to present the CCIU for occupational education, categorical, and marketplace budget. If you go to the next slide, I'll show you the breakdown of the 4 different areas. So the CCIU budget is just shy of $300 million. Thank you. All right, so the CCIU budget is comprised of 4 components, equaling just shy of $300 million. And we're going to walk you through parts of this budget. Now, keep in mind it's about 300 pages long, so we're going to do our best to condense that in a way that is not only understandable, but meaningful to your school district. So next slide. You can see the largest components of our budget are going to fall in marketplace, which we're going to touch later. That's the red area, about 71%. But the reason why we come in front of the Board of Directors is there's some regulatory items by the school code. So the core services budget is adopted by each school district by April 30th, and we also have the occupational educational budget that must be approved by June 30th. And we have already reviewed these at the IU level, so the Board of Directors and your representation. Mr. Fisher, who represents Coatesville at our Board of Directors, would have already approved these at our last meeting. And then you have our categorical budget, and I'll walk you through what each one of these mean. Next slide, please. So there are some, here's a high-level summary of the entire budget. There is no increase in the proposed core budget contributions to the Coatesville Area School District. And we've done that over several years. So we're, I believe, about 8 to 10 years we've been able to do so. The total increase in occupational education, this is your career and technical high school programs, is about 2.25%. And lastly, we have prices paid by Chester County School Districts for our marketplace. These are the items that you select to use. As you know, the CCIU programs are programs in schools of choice. So we understand that the quality of our programs matter, and that's what brings students to our programs as well as their families. But we've been able to do that with an average increase of 2.47%. And this is well below the Act 1 statewide index, which is our bar. We try to make sure that any increases we have are below that 3.4%, which you see there in the chart, and how it's progressed over several years. And the categorical budget, that's the last part of our budget. That does not require any school district funds. That's your IDA funding, things that you get from the federal government or state grants. Next slide, please. So continuing on what it means for Coatesville. So your contribution, this is the 0%. Your contribution is about $47,000. Your occupational education budget, this is your career and technical education, is going to decrease by about $238,000, almost $239,000. You have about 285 students enrolled at our technical college high school, and we appreciate the support of administration to making sure students have access to career and technical programs so they can be job and career ready. And then lastly, our marketplace will increase about $655,000. These are projections. based on what you select to use with our programs. Primarily special education programming is where this falls for students of need in your district. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Lubitsky right now, who's going to walk you through some of the high-level specifics of our budget, and then I'll be back to talk a little about some other funding priorities.
Thank you, Dr. Fiore. As Dr. Fiore mentioned, the budget contains a tremendous amount of information, over 300 pages, so we've tried to summarize it in this presentation, as well as extracted information specific to the Coatesville School District. Just took a look at the organizational budget development considerations. These are not unique to the intermediate unit. This is shared by our school districts throughout the county. Things like appropriate staffing, retaining staff, controlling healthcare costs, wrestling with the how to balance the needs of capital improvements and the associated debt service obligations within the budget constraints. So again, these are all budget development considerations throughout our entire organization. There's an entire section of the budget that focuses on staffing. Historically, this chart shows that where our staffing needs and where our people are located. Marketplace services is the gold part of the bar. That's our largest area of operations. And if you go to the next slide, there's really not a whole lot of excitement with staffing next year. We're not proposing any significant new staffing positions. Doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of changes. We're repurposing positions, reallocating resources across programs where needed. But again, this is going to help us keep our budget increases as minimal as possible. This particular slide, I'm hoping we all can take out of our presentations next year, but this is the impact of COVID from an expense situation at the intermediate unit. From the beginning of the pandemic through December 31st of last year, the intermediate unit incurred close to $6.4 million in extra costs, and you can see those various categories. I am pleased to say that we were able to obtain dozens of grants from many different sources to help offset those costs. But again, that's a tremendous effort by a lot of people to make that happen. Similar to the school district, our staff members are members of the Pennsylvania School Employees Retirement System, or PESERS is the acronym. It's a mandated contribution to the pension system that's approaching 35% of payroll next year. For the intermediate unit, that represents over $34 million in projected cost in next year's budget. So again, an impact item for our budget. Managing healthcare costs. This is a pie graph that shows the major areas of our healthcare expenses. I will say this is an area where I believe the school districts in Chester County work very well together to try to manage healthcare costs as best as possible. We negotiate with the providers, whether it's prescription drugs or healthcare, to increase our discounts. We collectively work on contract negotiations, plan designs, and other cost mitigation factors. So next slide. The intermediate unit, we've through those factors and working together and just a little bit of luck, we've been able to kind of curb the increase in healthcare, at least for the last several years. Again, this is helping us move forward with minimal budget increases for next year. So, just an example of some of the things we do. Telemedicine, we had introduced that prior to the pandemic, and then it became essential as healthcare facilities closed down with COVID. Not only has that been a tremendous help for our employees and their families, but it's been a money saver, and you can see the estimated cost savings. At the bottom of this chart is actually an example of how the districts work well together. This is the area of pharmacy benefits or prescription drugs. We negotiated contracts several years ago that are estimated to save our members close to $10 million this year. So again, just leveraging our buying power to help reduce cost. Which is a good segue into this. This is a summary of the Chester County Joint Purchasing Board, and this is essentially a consortium of, we put up joint bids for some of the more commonly used services, goods, equipment, those type of things. And on the left-hand side, you can see the various areas. Close to $15 million in savings, we estimate. And this is not an intermediate unit alone kind of function. This is a credit to people throughout the organizations, your business managers, facilities folks, IT, purchasing, and food services. Again, work very, very hard to put together these bids every year and to maintain contact with the selected vendors. Much like the school district, the intermediate unit has a very large facilities footprint. People associate us with these large campuses, but on the next slide, you can see we not only have our major campuses, but we have another 17 locations throughout the region, close to 1 million square feet that we maintain and provide for our programs. In addition to that, we help manage the facilities of both the Avon Grove School District and October Area School District. So again, maintaining those and the cost of operations has to be factored in all areas of our budgets. So the first area of the budget I want to talk about is the core budget. You can see the divisions that are under the core budget, essentially central administration and some of our IT folks. Next year's budget on the next slide is summarized. The proposed budget is actually a decrease of projected $1.6 million with the proposed budget at $33.173 million in the next fiscal year. The next slide just gives you an idea of some of the budget impact items. Again, no new staffing, so we do have some budgeted increases for our existing staff. Likewise, PSERS contributions and benefits. Towards the bottom there, you can see one of the larger impact items is a savings in debt service. We were able to retire a bond issue this past year that was associated with some construction projects we had done in the early 2000s. So again, a significant savings next year for the core budget. The next slide was, that's just a summary out of the $33 million. The direct charges to the Chester County School Districts are about $603,000. Again, we're very proud that we're able to maintain that level, and Coatesville's share of that is estimated to be $47,445. A couple of things I want to highlight about the core budget. This is where the staff and the resources are needed for the Chesconet Regional Fiber Optic Network. Connects all the school buildings, libraries, government buildings, some of the universities in the region. It's been around for several decades, and it's been an excellent resource. It became essential 2 years ago for obvious reasons. So again, we're very involved in maintaining that throughout the year. Likewise, next slide shows just highlights some of the things we do, not only in the county but kind of regionally and statewide. We have a innovative education services division. And just an example of a close to $2 million grant that they were able to obtain to provide STEM and computer science type programs through school districts throughout the region. Again, at no cost to our school districts. The next area of the budget I want to talk about is the occupational education budget. With the support of the districts over the last 20 years, we have been able to renovate or construct new campuses throughout the county. And those have really positioned Chester County as a leader in career and technical education, not just in the county or in Pennsylvania, but really nationally. If you look at what we have to offer, the programs and the resources. The next slide, next year's budget, this slide shows that despite the pandemic, our enrollment continues to be very, very strong. Currently about 2,200 students across 3 campuses. Next slide. Just a high-level look at the proposed budget. Next year's budget is proposed at $30,361,000. That's an increase of about 5.3%. Again, our 3-year average enrollment remains constant. And to support next year's budget, we are requesting an increase of tuition of 2.25%. And I'll get into a little bit of that in the next several slides. Looking at it from the high level, we have a lot of staff in these areas, obviously, running the 3 campuses. So you can see the existing staff, projected salary and benefit increases. No new staffing changes. We do have an increase in debt service in this particular budget. That's related to renovations that were done at our Pickering campus several years ago. So we're beginning to have to absorb those debt service costs into our operating budget. We don't like raising prices. We don't like raising tuition rates. But when we do, we've always used the Act 1 index as our benchmark or our ceiling. Historically, we've been successful in operating our occupational education programs with little or no increase in our tuition rates. And again, looking at this chart, we should be successful in doing that next year also. This particular slide is specific to your district. It's just the formula that's used to determine the school district's contribution to next year's occupational education budget. It's a formula based on a 3-year average enrollment multiplied by the tuition rate, and you can see the math there. Based on the enrollment trends of the Coatesville Area School District, you're looking at a reduction in costs of about $239,000 or 7% next year. This is the slide, I think it really tells the story though. You have 285 students in our programs, in several dozen different programs. And it really shows the beauty of our campus model. These programs really wouldn't be feasible or economic or space-wise to be able to be replicated at each school district. But you can see students are taking advantage of the opportunities across many different trades, many different fields of study. I handed out to the board an informatics graphic that gives even more detail about specific school district, Coatesville School District students, some of their career pathways, their interests, some of their achievements. I think it really does a good job of highlighting the excellence of some of the programs and how your students are doing. Again, just talking more about that. We're training young people. The idea is getting them ready for the workforce. And we connect them with businesses, we connect them with jobs, through internships, co-op programs, interviews, and ultimately placements in job fields. I'll turn it over to Dr. Fiore to talk about our final budget area, the marketplace services budget.
Thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, our largest part of our budget is the marketplace budget, which has about 200 million and 101 programs. So you can see a tremendous amount of energy goes into these programs. These programs are programs of choice. These are school districts across the region that select to use these services for a variety of reasons. Next slide, please. So when you look at the summary here, we're able to move around and maybe cut costs that you might be able to say through that. Some of it is due to COVID. We've seen some increases in certain areas, but grant funding that hasn't been able to supplant some of the dollars. So you'll see about a $2.5 million change from budget to budget, which is good for us. We're able to bring down some of those costs. Next slide. So when you think about this $200 million part of our budget, more importantly, it's not just the dollars, it's about programs for children. You'll see it's home and community service, preschool special education, the IDA Act for Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, which is a federal requirement, our special education programming. So you'll see there's a variety of different programs that go into it, including our migrant population programs that is growing rapidly, especially in the southern part of the county. All in all, this is what we're really proud of, and I think you're a partner in this. We serve nearly 70,000 adults and students across the region. And that's the impact of this work. We'll be able to create futures for kids all across the region, and we do that in partnership with our 12 school districts. One of the areas we like to highlight is our Brandywine Virtual Academy, and here this is something a slide that we're all familiar with across Chester County, and it's the impact of charter school, their impact on our budgets. And the one area I really want to highlight is the cyber charter school costs. And you'll see that we're approaching almost $20 million in cyber costs across the entire county, and nearly $115 million for the entire charter school costs. But one of the successes that we've spent a lot of time on is the Brandywine Virtual Academy in our Technical College High School Brandywine campus. And we had the grand opening earlier this year. Next slide, please. So the Brandywine Virtual Academy, what has made this successful? So back in 2018, 2019, we had about 770 students. And we've seen a sharp increase as part of COVID, which we all saw were students moving virtual. But what we've seen, at least in our experience, is that students are staying in the program. And we serve the Philadelphia School District and Pittsburgh School Districts as well. And we're well over 3,300, actually today we're over 3,400 on enrollment. And we're able to do it in a cost-effective way. Next slide, please. So we highlight this because we're able to offer a cost-affordable model for school districts all across the region in this way. The red line at the top talks about the cyber charter school special education rate. This is regardless of the service the students are receiving. If it's speech, it's still going to be $36,000, or if you're a multiple disability student. So the price doesn't change in that model. But you'll see here in the blue, it's the cyber for a regular tuition rate, which is about $14,000. But the BVA rate is right around $5,400. And that's because we're able to control costs and be able to run it on a cost for fee model. So if it costs us, we have about a 6 to 8% markup to cover our other costs, and we're still able to run it at $5,400. And that's been the appeal all across the state, and it's growing rapidly. And we're very proud of that because we can save school districts a lot of money by engaging in this model. And I know Coatesville has in the past used it, and you have your own model, because this is what works to be able to save dollars. So across the state, this model has saved almost $27 million. And talk about service to schools that you're able to reinvest in your school districts and for kids. These are the kind of things we're proud of doing because it opens up other doors in your schools. Next slide, please. But outside of even that model, our categorical budget is we're very aggressive in seeking out federal funds as well as state funds. You'll see the Perkins Plan, which is our technical college high school program. You'll see the emergency assistance programs that was released. We've received about $10 million. All in all, last year, we received about $36 million in grant dollars because we have a large team that is dedicated to getting these dollars because we can offset costs to provide more services. You'll notice most of these programs are for students that with special needs or in our career and technical college program. So we're able to offset many costs through that. And it also runs with some staffing. You'll see it's almost 69 staff members we're able to hire to provide these services as per the grant. Now this is a bit of an eye chart. This is the full list of the items that Coatesville engages with us in our all the total service purchases. You'll see it's quite a variety. And we thank you for partnering with us because together we're able to provide some really, really great programs for students from preschool special education to our CTE academic programs and so on. So we're very proud of that partnership we have with Coatesville. So with that, Mr. Lubitsky and I are happy to answer any questions you may have about the budget.
Any questions, but I want to thank you for the relationship that you have with us and the services that you help us provide to our young people and to our teachers. Thank you for everything.
You're very welcome. We're glad to do it.
And again, gentlemen, Ms. Mills beat me to the punch, but on behalf of the entire board, first and foremost, we appreciate you coming out tonight. I know you got a traveling show throughout the county, and I think you have another engagement yet this evening. So thank you for coming and taking the time to present to us. And it is greatly appreciated, but more importantly, on behalf of the board, thank you for recognizing some of the financial struggles we've had over the last couple of years and reaching out and providing us the best you could with programs. That does not go unnoticed, and we are greatly appreciative of our partnership with you and look forward to partnering with you in the future. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Absolutely. Proud to do it.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any other questions, comments, or concerns? Thank you very much. All right, next up, it looks like we have an audit review by Christopher Herr from Maley LLP.
Evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Chris Herm, a partner with Maley LLP. We were the independent auditors for the June 30, 21 financials. Very happy to be here tonight to present the results to you. Always like to give a little bit of a background. We are the independent auditors, so we're not doing bookkeeping or anything like that. We wait till the year is closed. The numbers are final from the business office, and then we come in and basically investigate all the numbers from the year. We come in with a very lengthy document request list, everything from every bank statement and reconciliation to payroll information, receivable, payable schedules, all the way down to individual invoices for expenses. And at the end of all that, we provide the financial statement. I did provide an executive summary this year. I think you all should have that, a 4 or 5 page summary. I'm just going to kind of stick to that rather than going through the 100-page document. So the financial statement auditor, or the auditor's report on that. Our opinion is an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's also known as a clean opinion. It's the best opinion you can have on your financials. It's what you want to have on this report. What that means is, in our opinion, they're free of any material misstatement. They're in compliance with GAAP. That's generally accepted accounting principles. They comply with all CASD pronouncements. That's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board that sort of dictates how some of these numbers are recorded and how some of these disclosures are written. And there's no scope limitations. Everything that we asked for from the business office, we did receive as part of our audit. There was no instances of non-compliance related to the financial statements. We did have 2 findings related to the financial statement audit. Finding 2021-001, lack of internal controls over the preparation of the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. So we're provided with a list of all federal grants that the school district has. That's your IDEA money, Title I, Title II, the nutrition cluster, things of that nature. When we went through that, we tie every grant out to your books. And when we did that, we realized that there was a very large grant missing, an $838,000 grant for one of the new coronavirus relief funds. So we do have a finding related to missing that grant in that schedule. We also had a finding 2021-002, accounts payable. There were 2 issues here. One, there was $4.7 million of checks that were cut in July of 2021 that were backdated to June of 2021. And what happens when that occurs, I've seen that before, but what happens is cash is understated and payables are understated at the end of the year. So we did fix that as part of our audit, increased cash up to where it needed to be and increased payables, but that misstatement did result in this finding. We also do a search for unrecorded liabilities. So what we'll do is we'll look at July and August expenditures, review the underlying invoices, and just make sure that anything that was related to the June 30, 2021 year was recorded in the June 30, 2021 year. We found $171,000 of unrecorded liabilities, things that needed to be recorded in the June 30, 2021 year that were not. The uniform guidance audit also, I don't know if this sound is going out. The uniform guidance audit, this is the audit of those federal grants that I was just talking about, that we use that schedule of expenditures of federal awards to guide us through. That was, again, an unmodified opinion on the single audit, the uniform guidance audit. No deficiencies over internal controls of the programs we looked at. We did look at 3 programs, Title I, and then there was 2 new grants that you received related to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Education Stabilization Fund, there's about $2.6 million there that we audited, and also the Coronavirus Relief Fund, there was $1.2 million there. We audited that as well. And again, no issues. We were testing expenses. All that money looks like it's being spent on the things it's supposed to be spent on, and no issues there. Some of the significant accounting estimates that are in the audit, capital assets, this is your buildings, your vehicles, your equipment. Total cost at the end of the year is about $265 million. Accumulated depreciation on those assets is about $119 million. So it means you're about 44% through the life of your assets, which is pretty average. Usually I see between 40 and 60%. Business type activities, which would be your food service, $1.6 million of equipment there, about $1.5 million of depreciation. So you are substantially through the life of most of those assets. The net pension liability, this is your share of the PSERS pie, so to speak. I don't know what it is, 50 million, 60 million, 50 billion, $60 billion that gets allocated to all the schools. Your share of that at the end of 2021 was $146 million. That is an increase of $6 million from the year before. One thing I would point out there is there is a one-year look back. So in your June 30, 2021 financials, you are seeing an allocation of a pension number as of June 30, 2020. So that's 3 months into the pandemic when the markets were not looking as great as they are now. I would definitely expect that liability to start heading back in the other direction when we're looking at June 30, 22's financials and June 30, 21 pension information. The OPEB estimates, all pretty consistent from year to year, and compensated absences, again, pretty consistent year to year. The next page, we do a couple graphs here just showing revenues and expenses for the 2021 year versus the prior year. No real big variations here. Your local source revenue was pretty much flat year on year. State source revenue also pretty flat year on year. Federal sources, that was up about $1.4 million. That's going to be related to some of that new COVID-19 pandemic money that was coming out. Expenditures, again, overall pretty flat. Expenditures actually went down about $2.1 million from the year before. Instructional expense, very stable, around $136 million. The other expenses, which is really mostly debt service and some facility expenditures, also flat, just shy of $14 million. But support services did drop about $2.4 million from 38.5 down to 36.1. And big decrease there was transportation expense, dropped just shy of $2 million. Fund balance. The other governmental funds, your capital projects and capital reserve funds. Last year, fund balance was $3 million. That's up to $20 million at the end of this year. The reason for that increase was there was a general obligation note A that was issued that provided $20 million of capital project funds. The general fund last year was the first year that went negative. That was negative $1.5 million last year. That's negative $1.8 million this year. Obviously, having a negative fund balance in the general fund is not ideal. It would be nice to see that start to climb back into black, but it is continuing to hover as a negative $1 to $2 million figure. Food service fund balance there. It's the last 3 years it's been pretty solid. Negative, well, shouldn't say solid, but consistent. Negative 2.3 to negative 2.4 million. One thing I did look at was if we pulled out some of that PSERS, OPEB, and pension money out of there, what would that look like? Because some of that is allocated. When I pulled that out, it actually is on an operational basis in the black. It's about $500,000 positive fund balance in there. So it's really only a negative because of those PSERS liabilities and OPEBs that are allocated there. Net position. This is sort of like fund balance, but it includes long-term assets, long-term liabilities. It is relatively consistent from year to year. It's hovering around $65 to $175 million negative. And again, the reason that's negative is because of these PSERS, OPEB, and liability figures. Bond, debt, bond and note payables, year on year. Last year there was about $156.8 million of debt. That increased to $182.1 million of debt at the end of this year. The big driver, again, I had just mentioned the capital project fund balance went up because of that new bond for new money. So that is the contributing factor there for the increase in debt, new money for capital projects. In the last page there, I put this in all my slideshows just to kind of give an idea of some of the things that we're doing in the background. One of the things we do every year is we get the general ledger detail from the school district. That is hundreds of pages of reports of every individual transaction during the year. We run that through software, data extraction and analysis tool. Allows us to sort of analyze 100% of the data and provide some different ways to audit the information. One of the things we do is a Benford test. It's a mathematical law that says in any large population of numbers, the number 1 will be the first digit about 30% of the time, 2 will be the first digit 22% of the time, and then it drops down from there. So we do run your data through that. We do both the first digit and the first 2 digits, and anything that sort of spikes there is unusual, an unusual amount of transactions that start with 22 or 31 or 35. We'll then aim some of our audit testing there. We also list some other things we do at the bottom. Pivot table analysis will lay out your activity different ways, month to month. Look for any unusual spikes in activity, decreases in activity. We'll aim our testing there. We'll also compare it to the year before and see if if the same months spike last year as this year. That's probably okay, but if something unusual is happening, again, it gives us an ability to aim our testing at that. Predictive analytics, we'll take the last 5 years of your activity, look at the trends, come up with a projection of what we think is going to happen this year, and then compare it to the actual results. And if our projections are off from what actually happened, again, that's somewhere that we'll aim our revenue and expense testing at. We do W-2 salary and analysis testing. We'll look at journal entries. We'll run all those through our system. We'll look at vendors, employees. We look for duplicate payments as well. So those are all things we do to aid us in more of a risk-based approach rather than just coming in and looking at the same revenue expense accounts every year with the same vendors every year, which is not very constructive. So again, just wanted to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit on some of the things we do. That's really all I had for this presentation. I'd be happy to field any questions if there are any.
Chris, just for the public and for the board, back when this report came out in February, excuse me, 23rd, it was documented. I want to go back to the audit report where you talked about the 2 discrepancies that were there. They were the invoices that were received for July 2021 that were paid with a June 30th check date. The auditors noted checks were backdated, not able to obtain a complete check register, and this resulted in an accounts payable and expenditures being understated. An audit entry to properly record those expenditures in the correct accounting period was made following.
Yes, we identified the issue, we researched it, we got comfortable with how it needed to be corrected, and then we did put that activity back into June 30, 2021 where it belonged. Yes,
Great.
that's
and
correct.
So along with the ESSER's pass-through funds that come from the Chester County Intermediate Unit, they were inadvertently left off the federal schedule for the audit. And that too was also immediately rectified and a revised schedule was provided to the auditors, correct?
We found the error, made the correction, and we provided that to the school district, yes.
So for the board and for the public, nothing malicious was done here. These are just clerical errors that we will make sure in the future that we double check going forward, but there wasn't any inappropriate activity with this, just to reassure the board and the public.
Yes,
Thank you.
the first issue really is a timing issue. The activity was there, it was just in the wrong period.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. That's why we have audits done right. It gives us checks and balances. To my colleagues, any questions or comments? Thank you very much.
All right, thanks everyone.
Excuse me one second, Mr. Finkbonder. Edwin, do we have Mr. Rohn on audio? Mr. Rohn? Is he on audio? I just want to make sure. Okay, we can continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. All right, next up, we have a budget update. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Diefendorfer and Dr. Dunlap.
You ready? Okay, good evening, school board directors, community members. Tonight we want to give you an update on our budget for the 22-23 school year. We can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So we've shared on numerous occasions about our roadmap on how we develop a budget. We take a look at the projected number of students, and from there we determine not only personnel requirements, but program requirements that are needed for the upcoming year, as well as future years with some of the things that get budgeted out. We estimate those expenditures, and these include personnel, program support, transportation, all of the costs associated with running a school district to support a well-rounded education for students. Once those expenditures are identified, we estimate the revenues that come in through local tax base, state, and federal monies that we receive. And from there, we then balance the budget going forward. And go to the next slide, please. As we've been working through our preliminary budget, there are many things that we have considered. First, looking at the ARP ESSERS funding to see what areas we can help offset the budget as it relates to COVID-19. The second thing that we look to see if there are any options for reducing some programming. If so, which ones can we reduce that have the least impact on student achievement? At the same time, we are also increasing certain programming throughout the school district. Next is staffing. Unfortunately, we cannot exclude this option in balancing our budget. Since this is such a crucial piece of the budget, we must really weigh these options with the impact it will have on student achievement. Because of what has happened in past years, we want to make this reduction as minimal as possible. And finally, we must consider property tax increases, which we know could be as high as 4.4% based on the Act 1 adjusted index. At this time, we are leaning towards a 4.4% property tax increase, but this is subject to change as we continue to work on our final budget. Whatever savings occur in the district budget, they would be applied to the 4.4% property tax. Thus, we would be able to reduce that number down. We always hear we want to plan for the worst and hope for the best. Well, our goal moving forward with this budget is to plan for the worst and make it as best as we can for everyone. Next slide, please.
As previously stated, these are very high-level preliminary expense projections for 22-23. We will continue to review our estimated expenditures between now and the end of the month when the board will adopt our preliminary budget. And after adoption of our preliminary budget, work will continue so that we are able to firm up our estimated expenditures for final adoption in June. As it currently stands, salaries and benefits are projected at $71.1 million. Support of other schools, which includes charter schools, VOTEC, and approved private schools, is projected at approximately $67 million. Transportation is projected at $9.2. Special ed is projected at $16.1. Other spending, which includes areas such as facilities, technology, building budgets, and athletics, is projected at around $13.4 million. Debt and legal is approximately $17.9 million, which is significantly higher than last year as a result of our increase in debt by $9.3 million. Total projected expenses is approximately $195 million. Next slide, please. Next is our preliminary revenue projections for 22-23 based on our funding sources. These numbers will continue to change between the adoption of our preliminary budget and the final adoption in June. We have projected local revenues to be approximately $126.5 million based on our current millage rate of 39.691. As Dr. Dumlach mentioned, we are currently looking at increasing this millage rate by the adjusted Act 1 index of 4.4%. We have not reflected that number here tonight since it is not a final decision. We have projected state revenues to come in around the same level as last year, which is approximately $54.1 million. These numbers will potentially change as the state budget gets adopted, but for now, we wanted to keep them at the same level. We have projected federal revenues to come in around $10.3 million. Based on our preliminary numbers, we have a budget gap of about $4.1 million that we will need to close in order to balance our budget.
You can change it, Barb. So earlier in our options to consider, I mentioned property tax increases. Our current millage rate before any increase is 39.691, and we know based on the Act 1 adjusted index, it can possibly go between 0% and 4.4%. At this stage in the budget process, we are looking at a potential tax increase of 4.4%, which will take our millage rate to 41.437. We will continue to explore our options between now and the final budget adoption in June and continue to try to reduce the 4.4% as best as we can. As you can see on this next slide, in our budget timeline, the board will be adopting a preliminary budget at the end of this month. Our final budget will be adopted at our June 14th, 2022 board meeting. Next slide, please. We want to be able to share what we have spent to date using the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities Act and Elementary and Secondary Relief Act grant funds. Next slide. This slide, you're looking at all of the ESSER 1 funds, which resulted in about $1,346,239. And as you can see, based on this schedule on the slide, we have fully spent the funds for this grant. Next, we want to be able to share with you the data using the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriation Act and Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Grant Funds. And on this next slide, you will see the grant amount that we received was $6,915,330. What we have spent to date is just over $4 million, and we have a remaining balance of approximately $2.9 million. The various categories of expenses include salaries and benefits, instructional services, supplies, technology and software, instructional staff development, nursing services and health supplies, facilities-related costs, transportation services, and Chromebook-related expenses. We will continue to provide updates on our ESSER spending in the months to come. This last slide, I know that the public had asked to clarify these acronyms. These are listed here before us. Any questions from members of the board on this preliminary budget presentation?
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. Thank you, Ms. Diefendorfer. All right, we're going to move on to the agenda items. First up is letter A, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills, payables list as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter B, approval of the 2022-2023 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services Budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2022-2023 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services Budget in the amount of $33,173,390, of which the Coast Area School District's projected contribution is $47,445 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbonner, if I may, I'd just like to reiterate what Dr. Fiore and Mr. Levinsky made known in their presentation, that there is no increase on the IU's end to their core budget this year, which is always a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter C, approval of the 2022-2023 Chester County Intermediate Unit Occupational Education Budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2022-2023 Chester County Intermediate Unit Occupational Education budget in the amount of $33,361,289, of which the Coatesville Area School District's contribution is $3,166,988 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments?
Again, Mr. Finkbeiner, if I may, just a point of clarification. This is the services that are provided for our students that attend the TCHS program.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter D, approval of the independent audit. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors accept the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2021 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter E, Maley LLP, additional billing for cash and other matters. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the payment to Maley LLP for an additional $5,000 for cash and accounts payable matters and accounting reporting for debt activity as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Ms. Diefendorfer, I believe that this is associated with the additional work that was needed this year to account for the financials relating to the CARES and ESSERS funding. Is that correct?
That and also the added debt service that we had gone for in last school year, that was presented in our last audit report, which gave them extra work that they had to approve.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter F, preliminary budget adoption and notice of special meeting. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the 2022-2023 fiscal year and the notice of special meeting for June 14, 2022 in accordance with Act 1 of 2006 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter G, CCIU 2021-2022 IDEA B Section 619 Agreement. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2021-2022 Individuals with Disabilities Education Act Part B Section 619 Original and ARP Allocations Use of Funds Agreement between the Chester County Intermediate Unit and the School District as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter H, Consulting Services, Richard F. Dunlap. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the following resolution as presented. Whereas the school district and CRESS have entered into an agreement dated as of July 1st, 2021 for CRESS to provide certain services at the request of the school district, and whereas the school district desires that CRESS provide substitute superintendent services in accordance with the terms and conditions of the agreement, and whereas CRESS has agreed to provide such services through Dr. Richard Dunlap at the rate of $850. I'll repeat that, at the rate of $850 per day under the terms and conditions of the agreement. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the school board directors hereby request that CRESS to provide substitute superintendent services effective March 28, 2022 at the rate of $850 per day in accordance with the terms and conditions of the agreement until further notice by the school board. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? As a point of clarity, if I may, if you'll recall, Dr. Dunlap was here in 2019. That transitioned into 2020. The terms and conditions of this agreement, it's my understanding, are relative to the ending of that term. Would that be correct, Ms. Diefendorfer?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter I, game workers' proposed pay adjustments. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed pay adjustments for the game workers to align more closely with the Chestmont League schools. The rate per game for high school game workers would increase to $70 for game manager, $50 for table workers, announcer, scoreboard, and clock, and $45 for ticket seller, taker, other. the rate per game for middle school game workers would increase to $40 per game as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? I'll ask Dr. Dunlap if you could just elaborate a bit on this. Does this get us more aligned with what other schools in the Chestmont League are paying those officials?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter J, Mailroom Systems Incorporated Addendum to Agreement. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors ratify the first addendum to the agreement dated October 29, 2018 with Mailroom Services Incorporated to reduce pickups of school district mail to every Wednesday and Friday effective March 28, 2022. The district can schedule other mail pickups as necessary. The district will be charged a transportation fee of $18.75 for each day of mail pickup plus 3.5 cents per item for sealing, weighing, metering, and U.S. postal acceptance, and 7 cents per item for sealing, weighing, metering, pre-sorting, barcoding, and U.S. postal acceptance as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Diefendorfer, can you speak to this for a moment? It sounds like this is just an adjustment as a cost savings measure.
Yeah, that's correct, because the current fee for pickup is $3, so it's going up to $18.75 per pickup. So we wanted to narrow it down to, certain days of the week, and then give us the option that if we don't need them, such as Friday, we were able to cancel that pickup for Friday. If there are any mailings that have to take place outside of those 2 days, we have the option to reach out to them and have them come in on those days and pick up our mailing. So it is just a cost savings, just because of everything else going up. We figured this was one area that we could make a little cut that we needed to make.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter K, Chester County Tax Claim Bureau, repository sales. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the repository sale of the following 4 properties as recommended by the Chester County Tax Claim Bureau. The tax parcel numbers are 16-9-331, 16-4-24, 16-9-625, and 29-7-18.1 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter L, Dindy's Incorporated Sound System for Graduation Ceremony. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the quote from Dindy's Incorporated for rental, shipping, and labor for a sound system for the 2022 graduation ceremony at a cost of $5,095 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter M, Jocelyn's Incorporated Yearbook Agreement. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the yearbook agreement with Jocelyn's Incorporated to be the yearbook provider for the Coatesville area Senior High School from 2023 through 2027. Jocelyn's will provide training and assistance to Cash to help with the creation, production, and marketing of the yearbook as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter N, the Believe and Achieve Foundation Grant for Summer Enrichment Program. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed $10,000 grant from the Believe and Achieve Foundation to the school district's 2022 Summer Enrichment Program for elementary students by assisting with basic educational needs and community-based experimental learning opportunities as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter O, Dick's Sporting Goods Fitness Equipment Donation. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the donation and product donation agreement from Dick's Sporting Goods to the Athletics Department of fitness equipment, including 56 dumbbells, 2 flat benches, and a kettlebell valued at a total of $6,540.06. The items are to be used in the strength training facilities at Coatesville area senior and intermediate high schools for wellness and fitness classes and after-school programs as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? I will thank them for the very generous donation, and we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter P, the Sparks Foundation Donation of Science Program. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the donation from Sparks Foundation to bring $2,500 in science programs through its virtual classroom visitation program to fourth grade students at Kings Highway Elementary School as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Thank you very much for the very generous donation, and we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Q, Frederick Douglass Institute Literacy Program donations. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the donations from the Frederick Douglass Institute to Callan Elementary School of 53 textbooks valued at a total of $301.57, and East Fallowfield Elementary School of 77 textbooks valued at $381.23. The books supplied by the Institute and a Wells Fargo grant will enable students to participate in the one grade, one book, fifth grade literacy project coordinated by Westchester University as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter R, creation of math multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, facilitator extra duty position. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a math multi-tier system of supports, MTSS, facilitator extra duty position for the 2022-2023 and 2023-2024 school years to support the expansion of the MTSS framework to include math interventions and supports at the elementary and middle school levels as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter S, creation of reading specialist positions at the campus. Recommend action that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of 3 additional reading specialist positions as to support students at the Coatesville Area Intermediate High School and Coatesville Area Senior High School as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Dr. Dunlap, could you just speak briefly to the implementation of these 3 positions? Was this a headcount increase? And were these positions that were budgeted for?
So this does increase the head count by a total of 3 with the 2 reading specialist positions and the facilitator for the MTSS position for math. These are, as you saw, that for the 2022, 2023, and 2023-2024 school year. These supports for these positions are coming out of ESSERS to provide those services. We'll cross the bridge as we process through this as to what we will be doing with these positions in the future, but they are greatly needed positions to support the programming in the district. Mr. Palaia and his team, as well as the principals, have done a lot to increase reading instruction with the curriculum and the teaching of the science of reading this past year in the elementary and middle schools. But we still have students in our high schools that need help with reading. And that's why it's important that we provide these supports on the campus for those students. So again, we will cross that bridge down the road, but these are very much needed supports that need to be in place.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Finkbeiner, if I may, how many reading specialists do we currently have at the elementary level? Thank you. How many in the elementary levels? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dunlap. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. Letter T, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, change of status, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes. All right, I don't see any informational items. Does anybody have any old business? Any new business? And we'll move on to public comment. Thank you. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. Can you hear me? I guess my first question would be the budget. So I haven't heard anything about level up funds. Didn't we get level up funds? No? I'm not aware of receiving level up funds. Okay. Okay, so according to my conversation with Susan Spica of Education Voters PA, she was the point of contact for the resolution that you all signed back in February. She had extensive conversations, or someone from her organization had extensive conversations with Mr. Hanna about level up funds. So apparently 100 school districts shared a whole lot of money, and they called it level up funds. So I know that we benefited from that. So I think the public would benefit from knowing how much money we got from that. And to that end, the governor's budget was historic this year. It was $1.25 billion that's going to go through the basic education funding formula for all 500 Pennsylvania public school districts. So that means $200 million is going to go to special education, $300 million is going to go to the level up program, which means that the low wealth school districts, the poorest school district will get additional level up money, and 277 districts will get money, additional money. So when you're thinking about the budget, please remember all of this money is coming from the state for the first time in the history of.
I apologize. I'm having a real hard time with my microphone. So the governor's budget, it would be great if we, when it passes, that we receive those funds. Part of the issue is the governor's budget may not pass until well after our school board has to approve the budget for the next year. So we have to wait and see. I know that over the last few years, the governor has tried to do a lot to promote education with funds, but it hasn't always made it through the system. And so we kind of wait in anticipation, really can't do anything until we really see what's going to happen with that state budget.
I understand, and I know that, you know, we're between a rock and a hard place, but the talk is that much of this funding will be approved. So conversations that we need to have with our elected officials in terms of supporting public schools. I mean,
I hope that that budget is passed, and that will greatly help Coatesville Area School District.
It would. It would. And I see that I am out of time. I can't believe that I've been here for 3 minutes, but I wanted to just speak briefly, if I may. The CCIU program, the REACH program, is an awesome program. There's many programs that the CCIU has. But if you all don't know about the REACH program, a family that I was working with the 16-year-old suicidal girl, I believe she's alive today because of the REACH program. So please, if you don't know about it, please get to know about that program. It is a program that's trauma-informed. It is, the student has access to a psychologist, thanks to Brenda George for helping us connect to that program early on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shanabilly. All right, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and I will join the, what are my glasses here? The Finance Committee at 7:09.
I'd like to call to order the Education Committee meeting at 7:08. First task is the approval of the minutes. Recommended action, approval of the March 8th, 2022 Education Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
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 We have a presentation this evening. Curriculum update, educational services.
Good evening, Board of School Directors, Dr. Dunlap. You heard Dr. Dunlap mention that we've done a lot in the area of reading this year. Large amount of work from Cassandra Jones, Heather Messenger, and Lynn Mancinelli. We wanted to provide an update for you also in all the work that's been completed with the math curriculum and the possibility of piloting math programs in the upcoming school year. If you remember last year around June or July, we presented to the board the reading pilot programs. We'll be doing the same as we move forward with math pilot programs. And I'm going to turn this over. Can we get this mic turned up, please? I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Mancinelli, who has been spearheading a lot of the math work that's been done in the district this past year.
Thank you, Mr. Playa, and I want to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to share some information about the current work that's being done in support of mathematics. So tonight I'm going to touch on some of the things that we're working on currently, and then some thoughts that we have for the future in support of mathematics curriculum and learning. First, our curriculum team documentation efforts. This is something that was started last year. We're continuing that work this year. In relation to that, we have a review of current core and supplemental resources, in addition to an exploration of possible future core and supplemental resources. Future implementation of the MTSS for mathematics, which we mentioned previously, and then also an exploration of maybe some motivational opportunities for our students to engage them in mathematics. So as I mentioned, we have some ongoing activities, and the first I'd like to speak about is the work of our curriculum coordinators and curriculum writers. This initiative began last year, and there was some support provided by the CCIU. As part of this process, this team, the curriculum writers and the coordinator, are working to create documentation including course outlines and also a consistent summary of all the mathematics courses that we offer in the district. So in this document, we will see the alignment of our curriculum with the PA course standards. And as part of the process, we can identify any areas of need for which we feel supplemental instruction or resources may be needed. Also, as part of this process, we are looking at our current math resources, and that includes everyday mathematics in the elementary level, that was adopted in 2016. CPM, or college preparatory mathematics, is being used in our middle school levels, again, adopted in 2016. And at the high school level, we sort of have a combination of resources, some of which are teacher created, some are online tools, and also other materials that were adopted prior to 2016. So as the curriculum team is looking at their documentation and the alignment, they are pointing to the resources that we currently have in place here. As part of this work, it's come to light that we feel a pilot is in order at this time. As Mr. Playa suggested, this would be similar to some of the work that was done last year through this year in support of ELA. Some of the things that are, some of the considerations that we make are the fact of the importance of our Keystone Algebra 1 graduation requirement, our transition to student use of one-to-one devices. When our previous core resources were adopted, of course, we were not using one-to-one devices at that time in 2016. COVID effects on student progress is certainly a concern and something that's brought to light. And also, third-party evaluations are now readily available. And the third-party evaluation provided by Ed Reports shows some concern for CPM in the middle school level. So in combining those areas and the fact that instruction has changed since those resources were initially adopted, again back in 2015 and 16, we do think that it would be beneficial for teachers to consider piloting new resources for the future. So the courses that we're considering pilots for would be our grades 6, 7, and 8 mathematics, so middle school level, and then Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Very similarly to the work done in ELA, we feel that there should be a several-prong approach, and some of the things that we would consider would be, of course, alignment to standards, third-party evaluations. We want to make sure that the resources we choose provide support for all learners, ELL, and students with disabilities. Professional development that would be provided along with a new core resource would be very important. Stakeholder review of materials and resources, and cost. So they're the things that will be considered as part of this process. So we've kicked off by sharing some information with the secondary teachers and principals as very important stakeholders, and we will be beginning next week on an early dismissal day to share some information with them. We are now gathering the list of potential core resources that will be shared with the secondary team, and some of the things that we're considering, again, as I said, would be ed reports for an initial review of educational resources, and they provide a rating with regard to focus and coherence, rigor and mathematical practices, an alignment rating, and also a usability rating. Some other things that we're considering are collaboration with other districts and trying to understand, what's working well in other places, or maybe what are some concerns that other districts have. Again, we know we are unique here, so we won't take and expect our decision to align directly with others, but it's helpful to have some of that information. We've also been gathering sample materials from the publishers, and that's something that we will be able to share with the team. So next steps. As I said, I've had a chance to speak to the principals and the mathematics teachers of the secondary level. And so we're inviting them to this sort of kickoff on our next early dismissal day, where we will come together in the curriculum center and have a chance to look at some of the programs that we've selected and begin by sharing the printed resources that the publishers have shared with us, online resources, research, and sort of get our thoughts together to see if there are any questions that we want to pose to some of those publishers. So we hope that we will be able to select the core resources certainly before the end of the school year, so that would probably be in later May. Once that's complete, we will have to coordinate with the principals in the buildings to sort of identify which classes and which teachers would be able to support the different pilots. And then once we can identify that and move forward, professional development would certainly be scheduled and offered for the teachers. A little background information here just to get us thinking about mathematics. These are some of the important components and things that we will consider during our pilot process. Conceptual understanding, and this is, students being able to understand why and how mathematics works. The concepts build on experience with concrete contexts, and students should be able to access the concepts from multiple perspectives. That's very important, and to be able to use strategies as part of that process. You'll hear procedural fluency, which is solving problems expected by the standard with speed, accuracy, and flexibility. And finally, application. Application is going to be the ability for students to apply their knowledge of mathematics and statistical concepts to novel mathematical and real-world contexts. So these are all things that will be important in our discussions and our review as part of the pilot process. Now, alongside the standards and all of the information, the eligible content, things that we might see in our documentation, there's something that we can't forget that the PA Common Core also expects of our learners. And they're expected to be able to demonstrate these practices, making sense of problems and persevering in solving them, reasoning abstractly and quantitatively, constructing viable arguments and critiquing the reasoning of others, modeling with mathematics, using appropriate tools strategically, attending to precision, and looking for and making use of structure. So it's a tall order on our learners to be able to apply these practices in addition to demonstrating the mathematical skills. Moving along in the presentation tonight, I want to share a little bit of information for you about the future implementation of MTSS. So at the elementary level, we have a little bit of a head start here. This year, we've added the Acadience Universal Screener to K through 6. And this is something that the elementary teachers had experience with from the ELA perspective. And we rolled it in just a little bit later for mathematics. The teachers gave the winter screening first, and they will be giving a spring screening. So, of course, the teachers had to receive training in the assessment, administration, the grading of the results, and then also data entry into the system. So our screener focuses on early numeracy skills, computational fluency, and then concepts and applications. And the different screeners, vary based on the grade level. So our next steps would be to build upon this experience with Acadience and to include and extend to progress monitoring next year. Our teachers in the elementary level have some experience with progress monitoring from the ELA perspective. Additional activities that are related to the upcoming MTSS work, we are reviewing some current resources. So right now we use number worlds for intervention for students with IEPs in grades K through 8. So the question will be, is there a way in which we might want to extend use of that intervention program in our general education classrooms in support of MTSS? We also have a small pilot program that's in place right now. We began, I think it was early March, and this is being conducted by 11 teachers across grades 2 through 6. So I'm very grateful to those teachers for being willing, to pilot something at the end of the school year. We found that based on our Acadience screening, our computational fluency is an area of need. And so that was one of the things that drove us to select spring math for a possible future intervention, and so we began that with the pilot. The program uses paired learning to lift students and to build mastery and mathematical confidence. We've had an opportunity to speak with the teachers who are working so far, and they've had some positive feedback. This is a paper-pencil sort of intervention, so it is not being done online. The teachers have a dashboard, so they have a component that's online, but as far as the students go, they're actually working together in pairs, and they're working their way through class-wide interventions. So we will continue this pilot through the remainder of this school year and gather information from our team, gather some data that will be available through the dashboard, and then determine whether that's something that we think would benefit our MTSS process at the elementary level next year. Just a few other things to keep in mind, and you've seen some of this throughout the school year here. We did pilot IXL in K through 12, and we did adopt that as a supplemental support moving forward. IXL does have skill plans that are aligned to everyday mathematics, which is the elementary resource, core resource, PSSA, and also grade level concepts. So, our teachers who have used IXL, again, grateful to many teachers who dove in. This was very voluntary experience during a pilot process, but they dove in and they've been increasing their skills and their understanding of IXL. All K through 5 teachers and secondary math teachers have received training in IXL, so they have a background, but they haven't all yet experienced it or shared it with their class. So that will be something that we're looking forward to bringing in next year. And so I'm spending some time reaching out to some other individuals who use IXL and have experience to help us determine how we can best roll that out for teachers so they can sort of be focused, right, and streamline the program for initial use in 2022-23. One other supplemental resource that we're also considering, which is on a much smaller scale than IXL, but it's called Extra Math, and this would be an online tool that helps students to develop their math fact fluency. And again, that was sort of one area of need that we see. When students have a lot of cognitive load demanded by their math facts, it sort of slows down and hampers some of their other conceptual thinking. So this is something that we want to consider moving forward. just a little bit of insight for everyone. You might hear these terms. So math fact fluency, which is something I just mentioned and something that extra math can help us to improve upon. And that's the ability to quickly and accurately recall the answer to basic math facts, accurately and efficiently. So the facts that we're speaking about are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. We want to make sure that students have the ability to practice these skills so that they can commit them really to long-term memory, allowing it to be instantaneously recalled. And that, again, will help reduce the cognitive load for some of our students and allow them to put their focus on some of the deeper mathematics and the conceptual understanding. We'd like it to be automatic for them. Another part of that, though, is having a flexibility to consider other strategies. If something doesn't come to mind readily, we want them to have flexibility to work with numbers and to have number sense that would also support their use of and their computation in mathematics. Moving on to thinking about MTSS at the secondary level. So this is all new. We don't yet have that in place, so we're walking into new horizons next year at the secondary level. But some of the things that we're going to do, we're beginning by reviewing and understanding how we can best use an existing supplemental resource called ALEX, and that is an online tool. Again, IXL, since we've purchased that K through 12, we want to understand how we can best use that in support of MTSS at the secondary level. Again, it has skill plans that are aligned to PSATs, PSSAs, Keystone assessments, SAT, ACT, and also grade level concepts. Other things that have been underway this year, we're speaking a lot about our current course offerings and student pathways and thinking about are there any changes that we may need to consider in the future. Some areas that we've identified as areas of need would be Keystone exam remediation, additional support for students in their core math classes, and then opportunities for professional development for our teachers, sharing some best practices and ways that we can help them to differentiate for their students. And lastly, but certainly not least, I'm looking forward to seeing how we can come up with some ideas to provide motivational opportunities for our students. I definitely see the overlap between mathematics and STEM work, and we have a few things that we've seen and you may recognize that have occurred this year. We've had a few events that we've been able to take students to. We had a Westchester University STEM event back in, I believe it was October. It's been a while. We took a bus of students to attend that. That was, I think, 6 through 12. I'm trying to recall, 5 or 6 through 12. Similarly, there's an upcoming event. This will be held at the TCHS. It's called Girls Exploring Tomorrow's Technology. And one of our high school teachers will be taking a group of students. That's girls 5th through 10th grade. Ms. Messenger has also orchestrated several STEM events in the district. One was the Flux field trip of 5th grade girls to the Flux facility, of which several of us got to be a part, and that was a very exciting experience for the students. You've heard about Hour of Code, which was done across the district, also to very positive feedback. And our Raider bots are a group that we often enjoy their presentations, their demonstrations, and that's just a group that really brings a lot of pride to the district. That would be led by Ms. Octavia Warren Ward and her team. So that's just an example of some of the things we have in place and some of the things we'd like to grow. In addition, I've been exploring a little bit about maybe some math competitions. You know, at the elementary school, you hear about Reading Olympics. That's something that we've always had a strong partnership with in the past. And so there are some similar competitions in mathematics that could happen across grade levels. So this is just one that I originally got some information for. One of our teachers, our gifted teacher, Ms. Capter, also has a lot of information to share with me about different organizations and different competitions that we might want to consider. So that concludes our information for this evening. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a name for one of your competitions. You can call it Magic of Math.
I like it. Very good.
That was impressive. We've come a long way in a couple years. I want to say how grateful we are on the board, me personally, for all the work of the educators. It takes a lot of work to write all this curriculum. and to look at resources and materials and to evaluate them and keep in mind what's best for our kids. So thank you for all that work, and thank you for the ESSER funds so we can pay our educators for doing the work and buy materials for our kids. Just remember that magic of math.
Noted. Any other
Any other comments?
Ms. Mills, I would be redundant, but I'm sitting here thinking the same things that you just stated, and not to sound like the Philadelphia 76ers, but this is a process, and a process that has been much needed in this school district. And it's so nice to see that the fruits of your labor are moving in the right direction. And I can assure you, with all the good things that are going on in our school district, this is the one that's going to put us back where we need to be. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Fisher and Ms. Mills. I want to thank Ms. Mancinelli for a very thorough presentation. But I also want to thank her for bringing in all the supplemental materials and interventions that we've seen this year. She mentioned spring math in her presentation, and we have some pilot teachers. I know many of you get the opportunity to go into the buildings. If you do have an opportunity, I would highly recommend seeing one of those lessons. I was fortunate enough to be in Mrs. Kane's second grade class at Kings Highway, and we talk about paired learning. This truly is paired learning. You have little second graders working with a partner of various abilities, right, various learning styles, all doing paper pencil tasks with math facts, and it was extremely impressive. No one was off task. Everyone followed the timer. Everyone had their roles in the classroom. It was extremely impressive. But it was extremely impressive to see the engagement from the kids. You don't always see that in the classrooms, and now we're seeing it again. The work that Cassandra, Heather, and Lynn, and all the administrators, but most importantly the teachers who are in the classroom implementing these programs, has really, as Mr. Fisher said, is going to put us back on the map.
Thank you.
Mr. Playa, I just wanted to ask real quick in regards to that, that paired learning. Is that paired in the classroom, like peers learning from peers?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
They're in the same classroom. Again, you don't match up with the same abilities. It's various abilities within the class.
So I don't know if this could be considered, but I know my daughter, who's a fifth grader at Rainbow, says that they are typically paired up with a younger class person to do, buddy projects and so forth. And, they recently did like a leprechaun trap for kindergarten, but maybe that could be another consideration, like maybe a older student, fifth grader, who might have a good mathematics foundation, like a big brother, big sister kind of thing, where they can like maybe learn from their big brother, big sister mathematic concepts and so forth. I mean, I'm a Gen Xer, so I have one foot in the old ways and one foot in the new ways, and when you say pen, paper, and pencil, you're talking my language. So I just thought maybe just having that like older kid influence might be considered.
And actually, so I get to enjoy the data meetings at East Fallowfield along with Cassandra, and so we know that that's just one example, and every building probably certainly has their own examples, but we definitely have, I believe it's third grade students who are working on some of the very most basic facts with some of the kindergarten friends just to help bring them along a little bit more quickly. Nobody spends, a great amount of time. They very carefully schedule a bit of time from some students who really show a propensity to be able to work with others and younger, and they do those sorts of things. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, and it just comes down to, the principals being able to sort of do that, and I know they do that at all different levels and all different ways. So it's a great suggestion, and definitely something that we'll share back with the principals, and I think they'll continue to look for ways to do that.
Yeah.
It just builds community all around.
Well, yeah, it just goes back to that. It takes a village mentality, and I think, not just like all groups of adults helping the kids, but I think, sometimes it's kids and older kids helping younger kids, and, that kind of builds even more community with the with the school.
Definitely. And,
Yeah.
I would add to Mr. Pelaya's comment, we have had some teachers in the pilot who have been very pleased to see that some of this, so in this very quick intervention, it's not very long, the goal would be about 20 minutes. Now, they might be taking a little bit longer because they're learning, the teachers and the students, during a pilot process. But it requires students to explain to one another. And it does, the actual tool itself will pair students based on their data, their screening data, or, teachers certainly have flexibility to do the pairings on their own. But what the teachers have reported back is that some of the students who might typically struggle a little bit more are actually doing a nice job of explaining. Some of the students for whom things come a little bit more easily, it's a little bit harder for them to explain because they're just, well, they just sort of know it. So it's a very nice balance, but often it pairs together students of different levels.
Yeah.
And I think they're benefiting from that. And I was really pleased to hear, because I know pairing of students can be challenging, but they've not shared really any challenges. And I think it bodes well for other collaborative work that needs to be done, especially as you move to secondary school, because we know some of the collaboration is intensified, and that's certainly some of the things that math research would show, that discussion and collaboration are very important. So just this small intervention at the elementary level, I think, is a nice start. And we're certainly looking for a balance between electronics and online and something that's paper pencil.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
I have a name for that. Math mentors.
Math mentors, math magic.
There you go. We're on it. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to item A, 2022-2023 school year calendar revised. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the third draft of the 2022-2023 school year calendar as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Item B, AFJROTC out-of-state field trip. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the out-of-state field trip requested for the AF Junior ROTC as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments? This particular.
Just a quick comment, Ms. Mills. Any chance we get, we need to shout out to our AFJROTC for all they do for our school district, and more importantly, for the great ambassadors that they are for our school district. Thank you.
I agree, and this is a trip to New Jersey for training, so that'll be great. Let's call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. C, AF Junior ROTC out-of-state field trip. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the out-of-state field trip requested for the AF Junior ROTC as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any comments, questions? This one is for a trip to Dover Air Force Base, which will be a very good thing for our young people. Again, I'm sure they'll do Coatesville School District proud when they go there. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. D, Cash German Club field trip. I'm going to take out the word overnight because it's not an overnight trip. It's an error on the document here. So D is Cash German Club field trip. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the field trip request for the Cash German Club students as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Before I second, Ms. Mills, if I may, I do believe this is a field trip that is going to span over several days, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe there's semantics there of overnight, but I think that needs to be in there because our policy states that anytime our students are going to be going multiple days, meaning staying overnight, it needs to be board approved.
I understand.
So maybe if we can read the motion again and put overnight back in there,
Sure.
then we can approve.
Okay. That the Board of School Directors approve the overnight field trip request for Cash German Club students as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes. E, ELA Core Program Adoption, Open Court, K-5. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 6-year agreement with McGraw-Hill School Education to provide the Open Court Core English Language Arts Program for instruction in kindergarten through 5th grade at a total cost of $883,051.43 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. F, ELA Core Program Adoption, Wit and Wisdom, 6 to 7. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 3-year agreement with Great Minds PBC to provide the Wit and Wisdom Core English Language Arts Program for instruction in 6th and 7th grade at a total cost of $124,219.34 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. G, ELA Core Program Pilot, Wit and Wisdom, Grade 8. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the pilot of Wit and Wisdom for English Language Arts, ELA, instruction in Grade 8 during the 2022-2023 school year at a total cost of $20,464.21 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. H, Spring Math, Math Intervention Resource Pilot. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the pilot for Spring Math as a math intervention resource for the use in grades K to 8 during the remainder of the 2021-2022 school year at a total cost of $3,486 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Extra Math Supplemental Math Resource. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the use of Extra Math as a supplemental resource supporting math fact fluency for the use in grades K to 7 during the 2022-2023 school year at a total cost of $3,500 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. J, Quaver Ed Supplemental Music Resource Adoption. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 5-year agreement with Quaver Ed to provide supplemental general music resources for instruction in grades kindergarten through 5th grade at a total cost of $36,750 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. K, Partnership with YMCA Swim Instructor Training. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve a partnership with the Brandywine YMCA to provide trainings to Coatesville Area School District students to become certified swim instructors with the intent to provide no-cost swim lessons to CASD preschool elementary age students and the utilization of the Coatesville Area Senior High School pool for such programs as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Comments?
Yes, Ms. Mills, if I may. I just want to comment that I think this is a great initiative for several reasons. One, it allows our older students to become certified swim instructors, and then to turn around and provide swim lessons to our young preschool and elementary students, I think is just great. And not only that, it allows us to continue utilization of our high school pool. We are very, very blessed here in Coatesville to have a an auditorium as we have, because as the gentleman sitting to my left, when he was the principal at Westchester East, realizes how important it is for a high school to have their own swimming pool. Where did your folks swim, Dr. Dunlap?
Shane University and the Y.
Okay, well, we had our own pool. Just kidding. But seriously, Ms. Mills, thank you for allowing me to share. I think that's a great initiative.
I agree. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. L, PIAA Championship Out-of-State Overnight Trips. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the possible overnight and/or out-of-state field trips for the 2022-2023 school year for athletic teams to participate in PIAA state championships or travel to competitions as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Comments?
Just hope that it's more than possible. Hope it's a reality.
I agree. Call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. M, Keys to Literacy Professional Development. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the proposal from Keys to Literacy to provide key comprehension routine training to high school teachers grades 9 to 12 for the 2022-2023 school year at a total cost of $43,983 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Pelayo, you want to take a moment and explain that one? Keys to Literacy, Professional Development. I agree. Thank you for that. And we're very hopeful. It sounds like a good program. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. And Keystone Remediation Literature Course Proposal. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Keystone Remediation Course, Literature, for planned remediation for students scoring basic or below basic on the Literature Keystone exam as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Comments, questions?
This agenda item and the next two are important because they are also pathways towards graduation for students. Students that are not proficient on, the Keystone exams. Part of that is to then be able to remediate and provide support for those students that do not necessarily pass that exam. So by doing this, Mr. Pelayo and his team and the high school staff are going to be putting these remediation courses together. If the board approves these tonight, they will then write the curriculum for those classes to support those students and enable them to graduate through that pathway.
Thank you. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Item O, Keystone Remediation Algebra 1 Course Proposal. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Keystone Remediation Course, Algebra 1, for planned remediation for students scoring basic or below basic on the Algebra Keystone exam as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. P, Keystone Remediation Biology Course Proposal. Recommended action, that the Board of School Directors approve the creation of a Keystone Remediation Course, Biology, for planned remediation for students scoring basic or below basic on the Biology Keystone exam as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Q, Aperture Education SEL Resource K-7. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2-year agreement with Aperture Education to provide the DESSA Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment and DESSA Mini Social Emotional Learning SEL resources for students in grades K-7 at a total cost of $26,730. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
I have a question, Ms. Mills, on the enclosure. So the agenda says K through 7, but on the enclosure it says K through 8. So is this going only to K through 7 or K through 8?
Who's best to answer that?
Okay, but this says K through 8 on here. Do we know that? Do we know why?
The CASD program.
Okay, and is there a reason why we're not going to 8th grade? Okay, thank you.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. R, MOU for Prevention Programs, Compass Mark. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the Memorandum of Understanding with Compass Mark to provide evidence-based prevention programs for students in grades 10 to 12 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
This was presented, we had the Compass Mark people come here and present a meeting ago. So I'm very happy to see this move forward and that we're going to be implementing, so that's wonderful. Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. S, placeholder, MOU science teachers.
We received that MOU today, but we need 24 hours to put it on an agenda for the board and the public. This was sent to us by the association, and this will be coming before the board at the next board meeting.
Okay, so we'll revisit this then with more detail. Thank you.
Yes, and I can also address the next item on your agenda. 2 weeks ago, I sent the contracts between Downingtown Area School District and the Coatesville Area School District, as well as the contract between the Coatesville Area School District and Oxford School District for their superintendent, board, and solicitors to review the contracts so that they are eligible then to send their students here to participate in the Air Force Junior ROTC program. I expect those contracts to come back any day, and they will be on the agenda for next month in May. They'll be coming back to the Education Committee meeting.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to item U, settlement agreement student 10002116. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the confidential settlement agreement for student 10002116. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. V, proposed adjudication 100199696. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 100199696. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. W, proposed adjudication 90003329. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 90003329. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. X, proposed adjudication, student 100113334. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 100113334. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Y, proposed adjudication, student 1002029. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 1002029. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Informational items posted on board docs is our enrollment reports as of March 31st. Do we have any old business? New business? Public comment? Thank you. I appreciate that. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. So I'm here to talk about the adjudication exam. I still think that they are bad decisions. I heard someone say that it takes a village. It takes a village to support kids that have problems and families that don't know how to support their children. I don't know the ins and outs of these adjudications. I don't care to know what they are. But I come from dysfunction. I was abandoned by both of my parents. I know that there's struggles. I know that there's challenges. I was in a meeting this morning with Brenda with a child who was suspended for 10 days. We were able to get it down to 5. When kids are not in school, they're not learning. I just think that adjudications are not the answer. I ask that you please find creative and strategic ways to address challenges as opposed to adjudications. I just don't think that they are the answer. I believe that we are strong enough and smart enough to find other ways to address our challenges. The ComparSmart program, I think that's a great program. I would ask that you give the community an overview of what happened. I see that it's only for a few months. It looks like it's going to end when the school year ends. Okay, well, that's fine, but please give us an update. It would be nice to see what those best practices are that were implemented. So at some point, we would like to know, what was done and how is it that our tax dollars benefited from that program. But it does sound promising, and I'm hopeful that that will contribute to a lot of the challenges that we're having. So thank you.
And we are hopeful too.
Ms. Shannon Bailey, once we adjourn this committee meeting, I think Dr. Dunlap has an answer to your question from the previous meeting as it relates to the funding money that you level up. I'm sorry, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
But let's adjourn first, Ms. Mills.
Okay. Next meeting is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022. I adjourn the Education Committee meeting at 7:57.
So, Ms. Shannon Bailey, I think you saw the perplexed look on our faces when you asked if we received the leveling up money. So I just happened to look over and saw Dr. Dunlap was doing a little research. So, Dr. Dunlap, I'll just turn it over to you.
So thank you for raising that with us, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Last year, the district did receive about $600,000 to supplement the budget that came in off of the basic education funding mechanism. So there was monies that were received last year after the governor's budget was approved. For this year, Governor Wolf is proposing $300 million, as you stated, for 100 of the most distressed school districts in the Commonwealth. But this is all based on his proposed budget for the 22-23 school year. Whenever that budget passes and what allocations are agreed to by the state legislature, That money would then be divided up amongst 100 schools to help close the equity and adequacy gaps that exist in our current state funding for schools. So we won't really know what that is until we see what happens with the governor's budget. But hopefully that 300 million goes through. Yes, 600,000.
For this year, for this school year, you're saying the prior school year.
We received it in the summer when our budget allocation came through. Somewhere along the line, as we receive payments on our basic education funding periodically throughout the year. Somewhere that 600,000 is mixed into that. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. Before we move on to operations, just a point of clarification. We do not have Mr. Rohn with us, or we do?
I don't think that we do. I believe we lost Mr. Rohn.
Okay, that's a yes or no question. Gentlemen, do we have Mr. Rohn or not? Okay, thank you. All right, so in Mr. Rohn's absence, Mr. Finkbonner, would you please chair the Operations Committee, and I'll jump in and serve as well.
Most certainly. First order of business is to call to order the Operations Committee. I'm sorry, let me get to the right committee meeting. There we go. Approval of the minutes. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the March 8th, 2022 Operations Committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
And we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, first up is agenda item letter A, Robert Ganter Contractors Incorporated, partial roof replacement at Coatesville Area Senior High School. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the roofing bid received from Robert Ganter Contractors Incorporated for partial roof replacement at Coatesville Area Senior High School of roof areas 1, 8, 9, 10, and 11 at a cost of $1,198,596 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter B, Munn Roofing Corporation, roof repairs at Rainbow Elementary School. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors ratify the proposal from Munn Roofing Corporation to repair the roof leaks at Rainbow Elementary School in the Media Center at 2 different locations, total cost not to exceed $8,600 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter C, Krapansky Fencing LLC, fence installation batting cage replacement. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors ratify the proposal from Krapansky Fencing LLC to repair and replace the girls' softball and boys' baseball field backstops and install a fence down the first and third baselines at both fields. Total cost not to exceed $14,660 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter D, Siemens Industry Incorporated, baseball field relamping project at Coatesville Area Senior High School. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors allow Siemens Industry Incorporated to replace existing light bulbs at the Coatesville Area Senior High School baseball field with 72 new light 1,500 watt metal, I'm going to butcher that name, halide lamps in advance of the LED fixture replacement project at a cost of $11,000. The cost of this project will become part of the overall Guaranteed Energy Savings Act, also known as GIVSA project, as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Dr. Dunlap, can I have you speak to this for a moment? Thank you.
Thank you. So there's an issue with the lights on the baseball field, and we tried to come to a solution to replace those for the safety of those athletes. When lights are measured, they're measured under what's known as an FC, or a field candle brightness. The average field candle brightness on those fields should be at around 50, and I believe on the report when that was tested, they were about 30. It's difficult to financially come up with the money to do some things, so we are trying to be creative and transparent with the community in this process. We need to replace those lights for the safety of the student athletes. But to purchase 72 bulbs and then turn around and change those bulbs out on a GISA project as part of the overall ESCO project of what we're trying to do to reduce energy savings in the district, and putting in those LED replacement fixtures, we felt that that would be a waste of money with those bulbs not going anywhere else. So under the leadership of Mr. Pellegrin and the work that he did with Siemens, he ended up getting Siemens to agree to replace those light bulbs for us. The total cost would be around $11,000, but that project, or that $11,000, will be put into the GISA project when the board votes on that next year. If the board decides to not go with Siemens, then we would be on the hook for $11,000 next year to replace those lights. The good news is those lights aren't going to go to waste after one season on the baseball field. Mr. Pellegrin made sure that the bulbs that were going into those light fixtures were also bulbs that could be utilized down on the multi-purpose field. So what will happen is those light bulbs will go in to the baseball field. Once the baseball season ends, those lights will go down to the multi-purpose field. The last time that those lights were changed on the multi-purpose field was in 2006. We did not test those lights, but we are going to replace those lights to ensure that those lights are high quality and that field candle measurement is safe for student athletes participating on that field. But this project will become part of the overall ESCO project if the board chooses to go that route. If not, we will put money in our budget to take care of that $11,000 to pay back Siemens next year. Any questions from board members? I also want to thank Mr. Pellegrin for the work you did with that. We appreciate the effort that you went to make that happen. Thank you.
And as I was turning the microphone in my direction, Dr. Dunlap, I was going to say the same thing. Mr. Pellegrin, thank you. That required some serious thinking out of the box, rolling up your sleeves and doing a lot of work to make that happen. And most importantly, it will provide a safe environment for our student athletes. So thank you.
I say this jokingly, but you rubbed two pennies together and came up with a quarter. So, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have one question. Region 1 doesn't seem to be included. I'd like to see some things done at Scott Field, or either in front of the old Scott High School over there, because you have a lot of kids there too. And if there is any money left over, I'd like to see it come in that community. Thank you.
All right, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter E, Market Street Sports Group, LLC, advertising and marketing agreement. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the agreement with Market Street Sports Group Incorporated to be the exclusive marketing agent to solicit and manage sponsorship agreements for the school district venues and events, as well as commercial advertising, signage, announcements, and other promotional opportunities at school district activities for a 2-year term from May 1st, 2022 to April 30th, 2024. Market Street Sports Group would receive a sales commission of 30% of the net sponsorship payments received by the school district from a sponsorship agreement entering pursuant to this agreement as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbonner, I have a question. Maybe you can defer who might know the answer to this. This organization with their signage announcements and stuff, is that going to cover all the sports related to Coatesville Area Senior High School, like all varsity teams and so forth? Because I know we have two big ones that do phenomenally well with fans and stuff, and we've got like hopefully the Coatesville hockey team starting, so I'm just hoping that there's going to be equal representation across.
Absolutely. Mr.
Okay.
Chenger is going to be meeting with all of the booster groups in this process.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. I do have 2 questions, if I may. First question is, we're looking to use MSSG as our exclusive marketing agent for soliciting and managing sponsorship agreements, which I would assume, in looking through the agreement, that it also includes advertising as part of that bucket of services that they'd be rendering. We also have 2 agenda items on here, requests to advertise from Kid Raiders as well as the Coatesville Area Booster Club. We also have advertising from other Booster Club agencies. Will there be a conflict of interest there? Will we be in violation of our agreement with MSSG if we allow our booster clubs to continue to advertise?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, perfect. And I don't know the answer to this historically, whether or not we've had any partnerships with marketing agencies, but what are expectations for return on investment for a marketing agency such as this? Have we benchmarked revenue generated from existing advertising channels using booster clubs, internal marketing within our own organization, so that we can establish after, let's say, year 1, because 30% is a pretty big commission to take from any type of sponsorship coming in. You get $100 coming in, 30 of that's going right back out. So that being said, how will we benchmark to gauge success of this program and reconsider after year 1, year 2 before the end of the term of the agreement?
So looking at those benchmarks through the year, I know that Mr. Chenger will be bringing those booster groups back together to get input in this process. So before we would ink any deals future down the road, we would be able to present that information to the board to help make that decision going forward.
Okay, thank you. I did see that there will be a group of district employees that will be a part of a review board before it gets, as almost like a liaison between, before it gets to the board, to ensure that our partnerships that we're pursuant upon are ones in which we would consider. In this conversation, if we include our booster club groups to let them know that this will be happening and that we're not going to infringe upon what they're doing, so that we're kind of working in silos, but also at the same time with the same expectations.
Yes. Mr. Chenger has met with the booster groups and to make them aware of this that's going to be coming on. There was actually some discussion with booster group leaders to bring this process forward.
Okay. All right, excellent. That's good to hear. So I will defer my question. I have no more. Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Thank you, Dr. Dunlap, for answering. We'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter F, Coatesville Area Football Booster Club request to advertise. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the request from Coatesville Area Football Booster Club to advertise at the Coatesville Area Senior High School Stadium from August 2022 through June 2023. All advertisements will follow the guidelines and regulations outlined in Policy 711. Funds raised through the advertisement will be used to support the players on the high school football team. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Letter G, Kid Raiders Football Club, request to advertise. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the request from Kid Raiders Football Club to advertise at the Scott Field from August 2022 through December 2022. All advertisements will follow the guidelines and regulations outlined in Policy 711. All signs will be hung in accordance with Policy 711 during the home football games and removed that same day. Funds raised through the advertisement will be used to support the players in the Kid Raiders Football Club. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Mr. Finkbeiner, and I should probably have made this comment under agenda item F, but just a thank you to all of our booster clubs. They work extremely hard for our student athletes, and knowing some of the people that head up those booster clubs, I know the huge amount of volunteer time they put in, again, to support our student athletes. So not just the football boosters, but all of our booster clubs. And not just athletics, there are booster clubs for other clubs as well. So just a thank you for assisting with our extracurricular students.
Well said, Mr. Fisher. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. See no informational items. Does anybody have any? I'm sorry.
I would
you
like
do
to
have- Yep.
make an informational item.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Finkbonder. I'd like to give an update on some planning that's gone on behind the scenes to let the public and the community know that at a certain point in time, we're going to be coming out with information in regards to the master facilities plan. So I do have a little written statement here that I put together that I just would like to read for the board and the public as well as our staff. The administration is still working on gathering preliminary data with the following architectural facility planning groups, Providence, ICS, and the Schrader Group. And we plan to share this information with the school board in a public meeting. As we present this information at an upcoming board meeting, we will engage our stakeholders in a conversation about all of our facilities, the costs associated with maintaining them, some future ideas on how to better utilize our facilities to support students, to support the programs we offer our students, and how to utilize our facilities financially best in the future. Once this team finishes gathering all this data and presents it publicly, we will then be forming a larger committee made up of district stakeholders to meet on several occasions to review this information and come back as a larger committee and make recommendations to the board next year on what the future may yield for the Coatesville Area School District through a comprehensive master facilities plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. I think it's, I wasn't on the board in 2016, but I have, having been a part of some of the discussions thus far, this master facilities plan is truly how a master facilities plan should be, the process should be followed. I think that Mr. Pellegrin, yourself, Dr. Dunlap, have done, and your team have done an outstanding job thus far of making sure that we're dotting I's and crossing our T's. And I think I can say, I don't think the outcome of this master facilities plan is going to include the conversation about building a new elementary school. I don't think that's going to happen this time. But I just want to say I want to applaud you and your team that have done the work in the background. I'm glad I'm not in those rooms with you and Mr. Pillai going through figuring out how we're going to push forward. So I appreciate all the work that you guys have done and that you guys will continue to do.
Thank you. I think the real acknowledgement goes to Mr. Pellegrin, Mr. Pillai, and Mrs. George. They, with their teams, have been the ones looking at programs, looking at spaces, looking at the costs that Ms. Stiefendorfer has been sharing of what it is to operate buildings that are active, as well as what does it cost to keep buildings that are inactive afloat. And so they've been doing a remarkable job. I look forward to when we get to a point to bring this out to the public so the public can see this work that's been done, and then form that larger committee to really take some action with this data to come back collectively as a community and make some recommendations that would really help the district moving into the future, not just academically for students and programming, but also financially for the district as well.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. I think we have, and I'll step off my soapbox after this, I promise. I think that something that is worth noting is in our school district, there are really two things in particular that are enormous lifts that are occurring simultaneously in our school district that most school districts wouldn't even fathom running at the same time. One is the work that Mr. Pillai and his team shared earlier, and that is revitalizing, revamping, whatever buzzword you want to use for curriculum, improving literacy, mathematics, really redefining the educational avenues. And then in parallel to that, you've got a master facilities plan that's completely evaluating every single district facility and its inner workings. So to have both of those running in parallel is something that I would venture to say, and I'll go out on a limb, most school districts don't have both of them running at the same time. It's, let's do one and then the other. So I think a kudos goes out to all those team members that play a part in that process. Since you brought up the master facilities plan, I think it's worth noting that there are some enormous lifts that are happening in this school district that credit deserves to be given to those of whom invest a lot of time into those projects.
If I might, just for a second, when you're talking about the lift that is going on, not just with the work that the administrators are doing and leading, but really Mr. Pelayo hit the nail on the head tonight when he talked about the teachers and embracing this work and being part of this is really important. I took a look and I shared this last week in our cabinet meeting. So we have a comprehensive plan. At the same time, within a financial plan that we're working on, we have a master facilities plan that's coming forward. Stemming from last year, we have a transportation plan that we've been working on. Out of the educational services, you heard part of the curriculum plan about MTSS and data teams. Associated with that is our assessments that go along with that, the pathways towards graduation, the work that the schools are doing, being led by principals and their teachers around CSI and ATSI, those designated schools. There's a Title I plan to ensure that students have access to these services. There's a teacher induction plan coming out of the pupil services offices led by Ms. George. You have a student services plan, a special education plan. Collectively working together between pupil services and educational services, you have what's going on as a 339 plan being led by Ms. Messenger. That is a K-12 developmental guidance plan. Ms. George is also leading, which is part of the comprehensive plan. We haven't forgotten about it. We are moving forward with it. The equity plan. There is an English language development plan. Looking in the area of safety and security, there is a Coatesville Area School District Universal Safety Plan. Work done by the policy committee that went on earlier this year, and by Ms. Harlan, and as well as the Mr. Galbraith. There is a threat assessment plan. We ended up having passed this January where we never had a threat assessment policy. Through the leadership of that committee, a threat assessment policy came forth, and training has started around threat assessment with the district under the leadership of those individuals. We also have a technology plan. And to wrap all this together, we can't do it without a communication plan sharing this information. There are a lot of heavy lifts that people are leading in this district, and they deserve a lot of credit for being able to take all this on. There are days where I know our teachers are tired, I know our administrators are tired, but they still rise to the occasion moving forward to not only keep this district afloat, but change it for the better for all the children in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. All right, so any old business? Any new business? I don't believe we have any public comment, so I will adjourn the operations. Oh, I'm sorry, our next meeting will be Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and I will adjourn the operations committee at 8:24 p.m.
I'd like to call to order the policy committee meeting. First order is approval of the minutes. Recommended action, approval of the March 8th, 2022 policy committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Moving on to agenda, Moving on to agenda item 4, recommended action that the Board of School Directors review the policy 227 controlled substance paraphernalia as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 12th, 2022 special board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Letter B, Policy 627, District-Initiated Real Estate Tax Assessment Appeals. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors review and approve the Policy 627, District-Initiated Real Estate Tax Assessment Appeals as presented, and if approved, to move forward that the agenda item be placed on the agenda of the April 12th, 2022 special board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Yes.
Yes.
And yes. Moving on to informational items. These are all the ARs that go with the policies that we've already approved. There's no old business, there's no new business, no public comment. Next meeting is Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, and I will call for adjournment at 8:24 p.m.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the special school board meeting for April 12th, 2022. Agenda item B, purpose of the meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to approve the bills payable and any other matters that may come before the board. Agenda item 1C, reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Coatesville Area School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Agenda item 1D, advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minutes should also note that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll, please?
Rob Fisher.
Here.
Brandon Roan.
Mr. Roan should be excused due to technical difficulties this evening.
Thank you. Harbell Brown.
Here.
Holly Charest.
Here.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Here.
Becky Harlan.
Here.
Mary Ann Harris.
Excuse me, Madam Secretary, Ms. Harris should be excused as well for this evening.
Thank you. Amelia Mills.
Here.
Jennifer Schott.
At this time, could everyone please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. To my colleagues, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda? Additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 3A, public comment on agenda items. The board has requested all persons making comments on agenda items to list their name, address, telephone number, and motion items on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. The board does not take action or discuss items not appearing on the agenda. The board values public comments and wishes to convey that although board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda, they listen carefully and appreciate and value input from the public. Ms. Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. So I haven't heard much about, when we're talking about the budget, legal fees. Specifically, I'm talking about if we look at Jacobson and John, I took a look at their website, and apparently they are a firm that supports special needs families. So perhaps there's a connection to an IEP lawsuit, I'm not sure. But it seems like there is an increasing number of litigation due to special education violations. Maybe, I don't know. FEAC Educational Services, I'm not sure. I'm not going to mention a person on the board, but if we're intentional in paying attention to how we are handling our IEPs and special education, we can save a lot of money. I've been following the finances as closely as I can, and I'm working on the big number in terms of these types of, numbers, but these are our taxes. And just think about the amount of money that we could be saving that could contribute to mental health services for these increasing adjudications that we are getting. I mean, think how many climate coaches we could be hiring if we eradicated these type of charges. Just something to think about as we make decisions that will increase the taxpayers' money in terms of, balancing the budget moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Moving on to agenda item 4A, adoption of consent agenda. Recommended motion that the Board of Directors approve the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action on all consent items which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. This evening, I would like to remove from consent agenda under number 5, Finance Committee. I would like to remove from consent agenda item A, financial statements, as well as agenda item H, Human Resources Report. Under Education, agenda items 6R, S, T, and U, which are all proposed adjudications. Again, under number 6, Education, we will remove from consent agenda items R, S, T, and U. Are there any other items for removal from consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Becky Harlan.
Yes.
Holly Charest.
Yes.
Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Harvell Brown. Motion approved.
Chairman Finkbeiner, will go back to agenda item 5A, financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. First up is letter A, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements, bills, payables list as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Becky Harlan.
Abstain.
Harvell Brown. Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott. Holly Charest.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter H, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, change of status, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbeiner, if I may, please, I would like to call the board and the public's attention to several agenda items this evening, starting with agenda item 1A1. It is with regret that the Board of School Directors accepts the retirement notice from Kristen Harlan, 17 years, elementary teacher, currently at Rainbow Elementary School. In addition, agenda item 1A2, again, with regret, the board accepts the retirement of Linda Pitts, 20 years as an English and language arts teacher, currently serving at North Brandywine. 37 years total. Once again, we thank these ladies for their service and all that they've provided for the students of the Coatesville Area School District. We wish you well in your retirement, and it certainly is well deserved. In addition, agenda item 1C1. It is with regret that the board accepts the retirement of Christine Cummings, 25 years as a food service manager. Now that's a lot of grilled cheeses and a lot of weenie wings. So congratulations to Ms. Cummings, who currently serves at East Fallowfield and Scott. I had the opportunity, while the principal here at the high school, to have an association with Ms. Cummings, and Ms. Cummings came to work every day and was dedicated to her job, trust me. So best of luck to all of our retirees, and we wish them all a healthy, safe, and long retirement. Thank you, Mr. Finkbonner.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. I do believe we need a motion for this.
No vote.
I'm sorry, a vote. Can we call for a vote?
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Carvel Brown,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Ms. Mills, Education Committee.
Thank you. 6R, proposed adjudication 1001996. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 1001996. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Call for the vote?
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Carvel Brown. Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott. Amelia Mills.
Yes.
Motion approved.
S, proposed adjudication 9003329. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 9003329. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Call for the vote?
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Carvel Brown. Jennifer Schott,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Motion approved.
T, proposed adjudication student 100113334. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 100113334. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Call for the vote?
Becky Harlan,
No.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
No.
Jennifer Schott.
No.
Carvel Brown. Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest.
No.
Motion failed.
U, proposed adjudication student 100202669. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the proposed student adjudication for student 100202669. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Call for the vote?
Amelia Mills,
Yes.
Holly Charest,
Yes.
Becky Harlan,
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Rob Fisher,
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner,
Yes.
Carvel Brown. Motion approved.
Moving on to Agenda Item 9A, Public Comment. The Board has requested that all persons making comments of public concern to list their name, address, telephone number, and topics on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. Ms. Shannon Bailey.
Well, thank you for the failed adjudication. I'm going to have some ice cream tonight. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate that. So in-school suspensions, they don't exist?
In-school ISS.
In-school suspensions?
I believe that they are in place, but I know that if there are coverage issues, then they aren't served, where they have to be provided a duty. And so teachers might be pulled from that. But I believe there are no in-school suspensions on the elementary level at all. And then, Mr. Pelaya, there is in-school suspension in secondary schools.
Okay, it would be good if we could, I mean, I don't know what the answer would be, but it provides an environment for children to learn, right? I mean, at least they're in school and they have access to their education materials. So
So the code of conduct dictates what the level of offense is versus what the appropriate action is for that violation. So there are, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 incidents. Level 4 incidents are incidents that would come before the board. Level 2 incidents, some level 3 incidents might warrant an in-school suspension.
okay.
Okay, it just depends on what happens with the student and how that student violates the code of conduct
Okay.
as to what level of response a building level administrator can administer for that offense.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Informational items, agenda item number 10. Dr. Dunlap, before I turn it over to you, if I may, just one quick informational item. This evening, the Board of School Directors, amongst all the approvals in the Human Resources report, approved John Allen as the next basketball coach at Coatesville High School. Now, to some people in this community, and in this community in particular, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And the makeup of a lot of this community, and if you don't believe me, just ask the PIAA. In 2012, when our football team went to Hershey for the state championship, the entire side of the stadium was sold out. When the basketball team in 2001 won the state championship at Hershey Arena, the arena was all but sold out. So athletics, although, sometimes I'm accused of going in that direction, athletics is important to many people in this community. And John Allen is a product of athletics at the Coatesville Area Senior High School. John literally took that 2001 team on his back and won a state championship. And we've only had one. We've had great teams, but we've only had one. And he is a great example of a student athlete and using athletics to gain a degree from Seton Hall University, to play in several NAA basketball tournaments, to travel virtually almost across the world, playing professional basketball in Europe, in countries in Europe and in other places. So he is a prime example of what athletics can do for a student. The gentleman sitting right here to my right, even though he went to the wrong high school, is another example of a student athlete. I was privileged as a student here at Coatesville to be a student athlete. And well before we approved John Allen tonight to be our new head coach, when John came back from overseas and settled back into Coatesville, he immediately started giving back to our community and to the youth of our community. He's run multiple youth league basketball programs. He has refereed umpteen leagues for young people. I guess I'm ranting and raving in saying that I'm proud to have one of our own back here to be our basketball coach.
Mr. Fisher, if I can just add, it'll be nice to be sitting on the same side as Tootie or John Allen, as opposed to playing against him in the Rip City Basketball League. So I couldn't have been, in my opinion, couldn't have been a better person to come and take that position, because there's, as a student athlete yourself, you know that being a coach of a sports team is not just somebody who's leading athletics. You're a mentor to the kids that play for you. And for all the reasons you mentioned, I was very pleased to see John Allen's name there.
Dr. Dunlap.
Thank you. We have a couple congratulations in order tonight. First, congratulations goes out to Emily Bidencap. She is a student at the Coatesville Intermediate High School. She took first place in chemistry at the 2022 Delaware Valley Science Fair. Congratulations, Emily. Congratulations are in order for Lisa Adamski. She is being selected as the Coatesville Area School District finalist for the Citadel Heart of Learning Award. She was selected out of all the teachers that were nominated throughout Chester County, and we're very proud of her for all she does for our students every day, and we wish her well at the ceremony on May 2nd. PENSPRA, P-E-N-S-P-R-A, stands for Pennsylvania School Public Relations Association. This is the third consecutive year that we have had employees recognized in our district for receiving state-level awards. This year, we had two recipients. Lauren Danick, who is the Executive Administrative Assistant to the Director of Educational Services, Mr. Pelaya, received an Award of Merit for her community newsletter. This was in the publications category. This community newsletter comes out monthly, and she does a great job with it, and we want to congratulate her on the award that she received from the state on this. The second person who received an award is Melanie Crescents, who's the Executive Administrative Assistant to the Director of Human Resources. Ms. Carol Heindel received, Melanie received an Award of Merit for the Rediscover Coatesville videos. This was done back in the fall, this video series, and it was about interviewing students returning to the Coatesville Area School District from charter schools, and this was in the special projects and video categories. So I just want to give a shout out to all of them for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dunlap. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
We will adjourn at 8:46.